Hi guys, welcome to another pregnancy video. This video is going to be all about the beauty and the horror of the first trimester. Because of the loss that we experienced with our previous pregnancy, of course, we were very nervous about this pregnancy. We were still excited as soon as we got the news and of course hopeful, but there's still that little thing in the back of your mind that you're wondering, will this be viable and will this be okay? I think as each week progressed, we felt more and more comfortable. In a few days, I will finally reach 14 weeks in pregnancy, which will mark the beginning of the second trimester. The first trimester has been really crazy for me. Some days I would feel absolutely terrible, and other days, or usually for a few hours, I'd feel okay. And in those moments I'd wonder, like, is everything okay? Like, are you okay in there? Are you still in there? But now my belly is starting to grow, so I still have those thoughts, but a bit less. This is the pregnancy diary that I've been using, and of course I'm still recording everything in my Ovia app, but now it is the pregnancy Ovia app. The last pregnancy video that I made was about the very first symptoms that I felt before we got our big fat positive test on 13 days past ovulation. If you missed that video, I'll do a really quick recap of the symptoms that I felt from weeks 1 to 4. During weeks 1 to 4, I experienced a bunch of different symptoms, some that seemed kind of normal to me, some that were completely off and weird, and some that resembled like, oh, is my period coming or am I pregnant? At one point, this was 4 days past ovulation, I felt a really huge stabbing pain in my back that just like knocked the wind out of me. In the first 1 to 4 weeks of pregnancy, I experienced shortness of breath, disrupted sleep, some pelvic pain. I was super thirsty all the time, bloated. I was super nauseous, so I ate a lot of ginger gummy bears, dried ginger. I ended up getting really sick of ginger early on in my pregnancy. I felt that my sense of smell was really heightened. My appetite would increase and then it would decrease. Hot flashes. I started to get breast tenderness, and the biggest symptom, the giveaway for me, were the really bad vivid dreams that I was having, and that's something I experienced with both my pregnancies. I wrote down here that my cravings from week 1 to 4 consisted of curry, ginger gummy bears, mints, and chamomile tea. I also had a lot of aversions early on, and it was foods that I normally love. So Earl Grey, sushi, those did not sound good, and normally I love both of those things. Also some vegetables. I know broccoli was a huge no for me, and also quinoa. At 5 weeks pregnant, my Ovia app said that the baby is the size of a peppercorn. During the 5th week of pregnancy, I felt absolutely awful, and I could sleep between 10 and 13 hours in a day and still feel like I need to sleep more. I was extremely nauseous as well. I wasn't sure if I needed to throw up or run to the bathroom or both. I felt forgetful. I felt super hot and then super cold. I tried to write down my cravings and aversions, and all I wrote for that week is all food sucks. So you can tell it was a very rough week. Weeks 6 to 8 were pretty similar, and I would say were the hardest weeks of the first trimester for me. It's when I felt the most sick. A lot of the same symptoms continued. I was still very, very nauseous, still very fatigued, like I was hungry, but then all food was gross. So I'd continue to eat, but I'd just like feel awful. I had so much body pain, like it felt like the worst flu ever. I actually started to feel really angry and frustrated, and I felt really guilty about it too, because I'm like, I'm pregnant, this is what I wanted. But feeling so awful, sometimes you forget that something good is coming out of the sickness, and that actually feeling sick is a good sign. Although I felt really frustrated with feeling sick and like I can't do anything, I actually, in hindsight, feel grateful for it because it really just forced me to slow down, and it forced me to simplify things. All the things that I was doing or felt like I needed to accomplish, it just really made me just prioritize what needed to be done. During the 7th week, we became quite nervous because I was having some mild spotting. We hadn't had an ultrasound yet, so I saw my doctor and he booked us an ultrasound, and then we got to go see our baby for the first time and see their heartbeat, and it was just so amazing and so exciting. I loved sharing that moment with my husband, and it was just so exciting for us. The baby's heartbeat was at that point 165, and everything looked good. Weeks 6 to 8, baby went from the size of a blueberry to a raspberry to a strawberry. The veins in my legs started to hurt so much that even sitting hurt. I also began to feel really short of breath. I craved very random things. So I craved tom yum soup, and then it's also like I went back to my childhood because I started craving things like Fruit Loops and fruit roll-ups. Interestingly enough, I loved curry during weeks 1 to 4 of pregnancy. Week 6, it was an absolute no. Week 9, baby is the size of a pecan. I feel like this is the week where everything started to slowly change. During week 9, I was still bloated, I still had fatigue, but I think in general things started to get a little bit better. Week 10, baby is the size of a kumquat. During the 10th week of pregnancy, I had an unrelated ultrasound. I had a breast ultrasound, and I've never been asked this question before, but the technician had asked me if I'm currently breastfeeding. This just really validated the feeling that I felt, which was that my breasts are growing so much. I felt some weird pinching near my belly button during this time. Still fatigued. I had nausea come back for a bit. For the past, I'd say even couple weeks before this, my ears started to do this really weird popping thing. And actually, I still have that now at 13 weeks. During the 10th week of pregnancy, I experienced some mild spotting again, but this time it wasn't just once in a week, it was 3 times. I did feel reassured by the color that the spotting was and that it was really mild. However, we still booked an ultrasound for 11 weeks. I don't have enough hands for this. 11 weeks. Baby is the size of a Brussels sprout, or so we thought. And the best part about this week is that I had an ultrasound done which showed that the baby is healthy and well. The heart was 162. We had the ultrasound done at 11.5 weeks, and they were already measuring 12 weeks. My app said that the baby would be the size of a Brussels sprout, but actually they are the size of my palm. From head to bum, 6 centimeters. Our due date was kept the same, but I'm wondering if that means that they're growing a few days ahead of schedule. In the ultrasound, the baby was super active. They were doing log rolls and moving around, and it was just so cool to see. And they look more human now. I can see their nose. Just really was so amazing to see. During my 11th week of pregnancy, I had 2 MRIs done that were not pregnancy related, and everything went okay. I noticed that my breast became less sore during this week. The nausea and the fatigue came back, but luckily it wasn't as bad as the beginning of pregnancy. I think I got a weird virus during this week. I was at the bus stop and I noticed I just felt so incredibly hot, and just like my legs were gonna give out, like my body was shaking, my legs felt numb. It came and went within an hour. I felt better after having some fluids and also some chocolate and taking a rest. Week 12, baby is the size of an apricot. Although I think that they were actually bigger because our ultrasound the week before showed that they were the size of my palm, but this is based off the app. During this week, just more back pain, more headaches, and I don't think I've mentioned this, but for several weeks I've been so moody and grumpy. You can ask Daniel. Here we are at the last week of my first trimester. This is week 13. Baby is the size of a jalapeno. I feel like that's a little more accurate now. This week my lower abdomen feels pretty sore, and I feel like more and more people are starting to notice my bump. I'm also feeling very weepy and emotional and fatigued, and nausea, not too bad. It comes and goes a bit. I'm back to craving some things that I normally love. So I'm craving London fog drinks, I'm craving matcha ice cream, craving chocolate. These are usual cravings for me. Actually, something really interesting about this pregnancy is that I've been craving a lot of salty foods and sour foods, so things like pickles, pickled asparagus, all those kinds of things, but also salt and vinegar chips, super sour candies like Warheads or Sour Keys. So my tastes and flavors and interests have been very different. So I'll do a quick bump date, a quick bump update. I'm 13 weeks and 4 days pregnant. So this is 13 weeks and 4 days. In the morning, my bump isn't very big. As soon as I eat, it gets big. So I think it's some baby and some bloating too. Thank you so much for watching this recap of our first trimester. I can't wait to share more about what developments and what new things happen in our second trimester.